everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Mila. You're at my book nook. I'm gonna bring this down. And today we have books for a rainy day. Now we're getting into the colder months. We're getting into fall, and with that comes a lot of rain, although the weather is not cooperating with me with the theme of this video. So you're gonna have to bear with me in case you see sunlight when there's not supposed to be any, because it's a rainy day. But in case you are having a rainy day, if you're, for example, in like the UK where it rains 360 days of the year, I don't know. In case you're there or somewhere where it is raining right now and you want to curl up and you don't know what to read, I have some recommendations for you. So the first book I have is The Picture of Dorian Gray. The Picture of Dorian Gray by Oscar Wilde. And if you want, isn't this so satisfying? Please don't pay attention to my nails, but it's not like the most satisfying thing. Anyways, The Picture of Dorian Gray by Oscar Wilde is his, I believe, only full-length novel. It is rather short, to be honest. It is 219 pages, so a little over 200 pages, and this follows our main character, Dorian Gray, who, well, you know what? I'm just going to read the back for you. At 18, the handsome Dorian Gray has his portrait painted, which prompts an admirer, Lord Henry Wotton, to declare that life is nothing without beauty and sensuous gratification. Suddenly scared of growing old and ugly, Dorian makes the fateful wish that the painted image should age rather than himself. Then, fearless of the consequences, he launches on a life of excess and depravity. Yeah. Wilde's cautionary tale, published in 1891, describes how every sin that Dorian commits is reflected in the portrait. The painting is banished to his attic, where the image finally becomes so loathsome that Dorian tries to destroy it. So I think going into it as blind as possible is the best way to go, and the reason why I picked this book as the first one to recommend you is because this was the first classic that I read for myself, like without any English teacher telling me or English prof telling me you have to read this. I read it and I annotated it and I loved it. This is one of my favorite classics of all time. I think it's so timeless. I think it's so unique in its premise, to be honest, and I just love Oscar Wilde's writing, and I wish we were able to get more of his full-length novels, of his ideas from his brain. He's like probably one of my favorite authors, to be honest, out of the classics, to be honest, which is a bummer because we don't have any other full-length novel from him. We have like plays, I think, but not novels. I think this is where he really shines. Although I haven't read his plays, but he really shines in this, and it was so great. This was fantastic, and this is like the OG dark academia, I think. I think the Secret History is an OG, but this is like OG. Because there's literally a chapter where Dorian like obsesses over a book and has it like gets like a bajillion different editions. And what is dark academia if not obsessing over like a singular thing, you know, and wanting to make it beautiful and wanting to really highlight it. So that is The Picture of Dorian Gray. I know that wasn't much sort of to go off of, but it was such a fantastic book. Next I have Pride and Prejudice. Now this is one of my absolute favorite books of all time. This was the first book I read this year, and then literally like a month and a bit later, or maybe even a month later, I met my boyfriend. So granted, we didn't have like an enemies to lovers thing, like Lizzie and Mr. Darcy, but I hold fond memories of this book, and this isn't particularly long, and it reads fairly quickly. And Jane Austen is so funny. She is so funny, and I really should watch the movies. I haven't watched the movies or the show or like whatever, the BBC show. I really should, but I want to hold on to this longer, just a little bit longer, you know, without having to insert the actors, you know, imagine myself as Lizzie Bennet, you know. This follows our main character, Lizzie, who, I'm gonna read the back. Lizzie Bennet finds eligible bachelor Darcy arrogant the first time she meets him, and when she hears he has been meddling in her family's affairs, is determined to dislike him even more. Darcy, however, finds himself increasingly attracted to her good looks and lively mind. In the story of misunderstandings that follows, Lizzie is led to question everything she thought she knew. This was such a fantastic read. Oh my god, I can't explain how much I love this. This is like I would reread probably every year during like the darker days, because I did read this in January when, the sun sets pretty early, so it's a little depressing. But this was such a light in the darkness, and I would highly recommend. Jane Austen is a comedic genius, and I also really love watching all those videos about Pride and Prejudice. I don't know, people are just so smart. It just baffles my mind that people are so intelligent with their words and just their vocabulary. It's mind-blowing. And then there's like a series on YouTube. I think John Green had something to do with it. And it's like a modern version of Pride and Prejudice. I'll post it over here. It's so funny. I think it's like the Diaries of Lizzie Bennet or something like that. It's really funny. But yeah, sometimes I quote, to be honest, this one. I quote it, this is such a fantastic book. Also, I just love this cover. I spent so much time trying to figure out what edition I wanted. And because I love the Penguin Classics editions, but I just wanted something a little simpler. So I decided on this one. Not that I'm against getting the Penguin Classics edition. Totally not. But in case y'all want to, get me something. But I'm just going to put that there. The next book I have is anyone surprised? This is the ultimate book, I think. Because you go on this grand adventure from the comfort of your own home. You don't have to leave. You're reading about Odysseus and his adventures. You're reading about Telemachus and his adventures. And it obviously depends on the translation. This might take you longer and stuff like, ooh. What's this? Oh, I can't even use this. It might take you longer depending on the translation. But if you do read, if you want the prose translation, I would recommend the Penguin Classics version, because that reads like a story, and I feel like you could finish it fairly quicker than you would finish like a poem translation. And this edition is so stunning, although it's really heavy. So you know what, I'm probably gonna read this either on my e-reader or I'm gonna wait for a paperback to come out, because but the Odyssey is a fantastic choice. Then we have 2 books in the same series, which is going to be a trilogy. They're companion books. The third one isn't out until next year. The first one is called Ornithologist, Feel Good to Love, and the second one is called Geographer's Map to Romance, and these are both by India Holton. These are really quick, historical fantasy romance, and these are just so much fun. India Holton has this very unique style of just narration, and it's really funny. She just has this really fantastic way of really, making you laugh. It's such a funny, they're such funny books. Ornithologist follows 2 ornithologists who are sort of rivals in the field, and they have to go and find this one bird, and they basically travel all throughout England, or rather the UK, and then hilarity ensues. I feel like this would be such a good film. BBC, get on it. I know BBC will do it justice. BBC, Netflix, Amazon, get your grimy paws off of this series. But BBC, on the other hand, I can trust. Actually, Amazon did pretty well with, I think, My Lady Jane, with the casting especially. But BBC, I'm putting my trust in you. Geographer's Map to Romance follows 2 geography professors who are married. It's a marriage of convenience, I'd say. And they're called to investigate these tornadoes in a very specific spot. And again, hilarity ensues. And then we have Emily Wilde's Encyclopaedia of Faeries. Perfect book. No notes. Emily Wilde goes to this distant Scandinavian coded country, north, right? North, where it snows 360 days or 365. And so she goes there, and then her rival shows up, Wendell. And so she is there to study the fake creatures, and things ensue. That's all I can really say. It's really cozy. It's like this cozy academia, and it's so funny and it's so heartwarming. And again, I also think this would be a really great show or a movie even. I feel like it would be really, really nice. It would be really, really sweet and just cozy and everything. Then we have The Hobbit. The Hobbit was originally a children's book. I know that people are very much intimidated by like The Hobbit and the Lord of the Rings, because of its like connection to the Lord of the Rings, and knowing that Lord of the Rings is incredibly difficult. But The Hobbit is it's a children's book. And if you put it into that frame, if you get into that frame of mind that, oh, it's a children's book, it'll be so much easier to read, and you can literally read it like chapter a night. And it's a really sweet story with this hobbit that goes on this grand adventure. It's a really great story, and I would highly recommend, to be honest. Is it on? Okay, that's on. And then we have A Crane Among Wolves. Now, I know that people, when it gets darker and colder, people like mysteries and stuff. So A Crane Among Wolves by June Her is a YA mystery novel set in Joseon Dynasty, Korea, following our main girl, whose name I've forgotten off the top of my head, but I really like this one. This is definitely her darkest novel, I think, but I think it is perfect for like a rainy day. And basically, you have this one tyrant king in Korea. I think he's the only tyrant king in all like the history of Korea. King specifically, if I'm not mistaken. Really horrible dude, right? To the point where K-dramas, they try not to even like say his name if they're like sort of referencing him. If there is a character that is supposed to be him, they like give him a totally different name because it was so bad. And so he basically stole girls, and a really bad dude. So our main character's sister gets kidnapped essentially, and she's like, you know what? Screw this. I'm gonna go and I'm gonna find my sister. I'm gonna save her. And then there's like this found family aspect. She meets the half brother of the king, who does not exist in real life. Like, there wasn't a half brother. This is just a made up. And there is a list of trigger warnings. I implore you to read the trigger warnings. I beg you, because it is dark. It is one of her darker mysteries while still keeping that light at the end of the tunnel. YA, level hilarity, I guess, and humor and sort of lightness. But it is still a dark novel as far as I think YA goes. Then we have a totally different book. We have Homeric Hymns. Homeric hymns, this translation is by Michael Cruden specifically, are a set of hymns to the gods upstairs. Hermes, Aphrodite, Demeter, Apollo. I think there's a Dionysus one as well. And this is where I believe the first instance of Persephone and Hades comes to being, and it is in the hymn to Demeter. And yeah. So I would recommend this because this is rather short. You can, again, read a hymn like a night because they're not very long. And there's like a bunch of notes, and there's like a fantastic introduction and notes on translation and stuff like that, and a glossary and everything. So I think this is a good, if you know in general about like Greek mythology and stuff, but you want to get more into the text, but you're a little intimidated by the texts, such as like the Odyssey and the Iliad and the Aeneid and like, I don't know, Cicero or whatever, I would recommend the Homeric hymns as a starting point because it will get you familiar with sort of the vibe. And yeah, like this is, also since it's like rainy, Persephone has gone down to the underworld. Let me read a hymn to Demeter, the first line. Hymn 2 to Demeter. With fair tressed Demeter, the sacred goddess, my song begins. With herself and her slim-ankled daughter, whom Adonis once abducted, given to him by deep-crashing, far-seeing Zeus. While remote from Demeter, whose sword is golden of sparkling fruits, she was joining together with ocean's full-blossomed daughters in play. And amidst a soft meadow field was plucking flowers, the rose, the crocus, and beautiful violet, iris, and hyacinth blooms, and narcissus grown by earth through the will of Zeus to please, the receiver of many, a snare for the maiden with budding face. A wondrous radiant blossom, awesome for all to view, both for mortal gods and also for mortal men. From this plant's root 100 heads had sprouted up, and scent most sweetly spread all heaven wide above, beamed as did all earth in the salty swell of the sea. I'm not going to keep going because this is a fairly long-ish one, and we would be here forever, but I love the way that goes. I love the way it's translated. It's just so beautifully translated that there. And the last book I have is actually a little bit intimidating for some of you probably, and that is Fellowship. Fellowship with the Ring. It is a perfect rainy day book. It is a perfect fall book in general. Sorry, my elbows issue. It's a perfect rainy day book. It's a perfect fall book. It's great. It's fantastic, and it really captures the sort of fall rainy day vibes, the cottagecore vibes especially, and I think that it is a fantastic book to read for a rainy day, or at least start. Like, you can literally start with like the beginning where it's like on hobbits, on this, on that, on this, just like the beginning introduction part, and then you can slowly work your way through the book. And I'd highly recommend the audiobooks. There's a bunch of wonderful creators that can take you step by step through the process of reading Lord of the Rings. So that is it for this video. Like, comment, subscribe. Let me know your thoughts down below, which books you will read, which books you would also recommend, and follow me on all my socials as per usual. Subscribe if you like this content to not, to be reminded every time I post, and I will see you in the next one. Happy reading!